7:30 Saturday morning, April 3rd, 1999. 2 steps out of the bathroom, I thought I had gotten punched by King Kong, like all the air in my body had been sucked out.
Joe Negrelli likes to write. It's become his hobby for the last 5 years. He often writes at his second home, the Holy Apostles Church in Chelsea, which has provided nourishment not just for the mind, but for the body and soul too. It's home to the largest soup kitchen in New York City that's open 5 days a week. On an average day, the soup kitchen feeds up to 1,400 hungry New Yorkers who are called guests. They come from all walks of life and their stories are as diverse. Joe started coming to the church as a guest 7 years ago. He now spends 3 days a week volunteering at the soup kitchen, a far cry from his work in the 70s as a freelance computer programmer.
It was a moderate income, never rich, but definitely more than enough money for me to sustain really good things like going to the ballet, theater, things like that.
In 1998, Joe was laid off, leaving him unemployed and uninsured. Soon after, he suffered a massive heart attack.
Then I drove me to the hospital and I was brought into the emergency room. I asked a nurse for a pen to get sick in. Instead, she brought me insurance forms. The 21 days in the hospital were $175,000, which is a little more than I thought. I couldn't believe it was that expensive.
As a result, Joe went bankrupt, and in 2001, his friends at a senior center guided him to the Apostle Soup Kitchen. At the time, he lived in the village, but Joe grew up here in this small house on 100 Bedford Street. He enjoyed being part of a close-knit community that he feels no longer exists.
It's extremely different now, including the cost of housing, which is skyrocketed astronomically. And I would love to live back in the village. I don't think there's a possibility.
Events took a turn for the worse. In 2007, Joe's roommate died, and he could no longer afford his apartment.
I was absolutely devastated to see that I wasn't going to be able to financially keep in my own living space. And I had to let that go and go into a homeless shelter.
Joe now lives in the Woodstock Senior Living Complex and has had several heart attacks since his first. He's diagnosed with congestive heart failure, a condition where the heart cannot pump enough blood to the body's other organs. Most of his days are spent visiting doctors.
I have a urologist, a proctologist, eye care facility, general practitioner, cardiologist, endocrinologist, and probably, podiatry.
Hey Chief, how are you today?
Guests and other volunteers have over time become Joe's surrogate family. This past summer, Joe befriended another volunteer, Peter DiPrinzio, a senior at Trinity High School, a prestigious private school in Manhattan's Upper West Side. Peter, captain of his school's wrestling team, spent about a month volunteering at the soup kitchen. He was busy dishing out food and counseling guests. Many of his friends interning at financial institutions were interested in Peter's experience.
First of all, surprised how much fun it could be to go and work at a soup kitchen. Sometimes people assume you're just going to be staying there and handing out soup, or you're going to be mixing soup, or something really basic. But it's really a lot more than that. It's really fun. It's interacting with people, and you're talking with volunteers that could be coming in from around the country.
Reverend Tim Morehouse, chaplain at Trinity School, introduced Peter to the Apostle Soup Kitchen.
And last summer was the first summer that we'd sent a student from Trinity to work at Holy Apostles, which can be a rough and tumble place. So you needed a student that's pretty special, a student with a big heart, but also someone who's kind and thoughtful, and nobody's fool. As he worked there for a couple of weeks, the people down there were saying, "Are all your students like this? This is an amazing kid."
As chaplain, Morehouse conducts service 3 times a week in the school gym, while the chapel is being renovated. Although community work at Trinity is purely voluntary, Morehouse does try to bring these two institutions together. He feels the soup kitchen gives people a chance to connect.
You have the level of the guests, then the level of the volunteers, 40 to 60 every day. Then the level of the porters who work there, they're all good friends. And now we have another level involving Trinity School and students going down to volunteer there. So it's a sort of a social location in New York that connects more and more and more and different kinds of people. And that's why it's a special place.
Peter is currently applying to college, and the soup kitchen has been a memorable experience.
But definitely nice to go back and talk to some old people that I met there, and maybe take some of my friends with me in the future.
He tore off the paper and gave it to the doctor, who ran up to me and said, "You're having a heart attack at this very moment." I remember thinking, you can tell me the truth. I can handle it.
Joe started writing at the Apostles Soup Kitchen Writers' Workshop that began for soup kitchen guests 15 years ago by journalist Ian Frazier.
Gives order to your life. It's a way of looking for meaning. It implies that there is meaning. When you write something, it's like you're making a paper airplane and you throw it, and it might go a really long way.
Joe's writings have been published in a book called Food for the Soul, an anthology of writings by the attendees of the Writers' Workshop. Joe's illness is terminal, but he lives each day thankful for the help given by Holy Apostles Church.
All of us as a unit come together and do something that none of us alone could ever do. But if everyone passes their little share in, we can do remarkable things. And for that, I am eternally grateful.